Welcome to Learning Forward with Niti, Season 13, Episode 3. I am Anvesha, your podcast host at Learning Forward, a professional trainer, motivator, and educator with 25 years of experience. Dr. Niti Rana was the founder and director of the New Era Career Development Institute, a pioneering institute providing professional training in Nepal. Dr. Rana also has a PhD in educational leadership, becoming the first researcher in Nepal to investigate the phenomenon of school bullying. A phenomenological study of the experience of being victims of school bullying has important implications for school management policies, teacher training programs, and the development of positive school cultures. In this connection, Dr. Rana has designed and conducted more than 80 awareness programs to combat the problem of school bullying in Nepal, India, the UK, and the USA. She has also published a handbook titled School Bullying, Peer Victimization, and How to Deal with It for schools, teachers, and parents. We welcome you, ma'am. So, if you could please speak a few words about your life and your book.
Thank you so much, Anvesha. It's really a pleasure to be with you all this evening. If you're asking me about my life, I've always been professionally inclined, and I ran the institute that you mentioned, the New Era, for 25 years, conducting professional training. But at the same time, I wanted to pursue my higher studies. And that's why I went on to do my MPhil in education and then a PhD in educational leadership. And that is what gave rise to the book that you mentioned, School Bullying. It's basically about peer victimization, and it's a handbook for schools, teachers, and parents. Because after you write a long thesis, I mean, how many people besides researchers are going to go through that whole thing? So I thought maybe a handbook would be something easier to understand. So that is how the book came about.
So, ma'am, how did you go on to write the book and what was the process of writing this?
The process was not very complicated because I'd already written my doctoral thesis on the subject. So I just had to kind of edit a bit and take parts from the huge thesis that I had written and presented to the university. So as I said, I thought perhaps a handbook, but just putting some of the important things would be more useful for parents and easier to understand for teachers and schools. That's why it's called a handbook. And I have, of course, focused on peer victimization because that was my subject.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, like you said right now, that you're focused upon peer victimization. So, what is it and why does it happen in schools?
Well, like I've mentioned before, when we say school bullying, it could mean so many things. Bullying is a form of harassment, is a form of negative actions. Now that could happen within a school environment, maybe by administrators against teachers, or even teachers giving trouble or bullying the administrators. It could be cases of teachers bullying school children, their students. It could be senior students bullying the teachers, and there's so many forms of bullying. But my research was on peer victimization, where a student or a number of students are exposed to negative actions, which could be in the form of threats or harassment or physical abuse, psychological torture. And this happens between children of maybe the same age, or perhaps the abuser or the bully is a few years older, or even sometimes even younger. So this is peer victimization, where the negative action comes from students who are studying with you, who are playing with you, who are spending their school years with you. And this is a very dangerous form of school bullying.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, throughout your book, we have sort of, read this line that bullying thrives on secrecy. It is fed by the teachers and the administrators in the school. How does that happen, and why is bullying particularly? Why is it, ignited by secrecy?
It's not only fed by the administrators and the teachers. I'll just give you an example. When I visited Calcutta a few years ago, and I went to a school to give a talk on school bullying. Before the talk, the children took me around the field and around their labs, etc. And they took me to a very interesting place, which was out in the open, but it was inside a kind of a shed. And they said, this is where we are learning how to um, plant and grow mushrooms. And of course, it immediately struck me that mushrooms thrive where there's dampness and where there's darkness. So I made a connection in my mind with school bullying. It thrives in the dark, it thrives in secrecy, and consciously or subconsciously, all the stakeholders, everybody connected with the school, are helping to keep it under wraps, to keep it swept under the carpet, if you know what I mean. It is called a conspiracy of silence. It's not that we don't want to deal with it, but it's better that we ignore it. Now, this happens from the perhaps from the school itself, from the school culture, from the school head, from the teachers, even parents. If a child goes to a parent, like you may be interested to know why uh, everybody is keeping quiet about it. If a child goes to the parent, they say, let's not make a big fuss, there'll be problem with the school. If you tell a teacher about it, some teachers may tend to trivialize it, not give it much importance. If you go to a school head, he or she may not want to admit that there's a problem of school bullying in his or her school. So that is why it thrives on secrecy. Because if it comes out in the open that uh, and everybody does something about it, something that I would like to see, then of course we've broken the myth. But it is something that is kept very quiet, also by the bully. But the bully is not going to say, I've been bullying this child. And the victim is so afraid and so anxious that he or she will never share about it unless we have techniques to rectify this problem. So that is why it thrives on secrecy.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, we do hear a lot about bullying these days, but why is it that we never heard about it in the past? Like, our parents never knew what was bullying and they do know now. So, why is that?
No, actually, it's not only that we know about it now. Uh, Bullying in society, bullying inside the home, bullying inside the school has always been there. It's part of human nature. It's just that we human beings, we have so many good points, we have so many bad points. It's part of human nature that if there's a power imbalance, if there's some sort of inferiority versus superiority, then there's bound to be some kind of harassment or bullying. As you can see, it happens in our society, in our countries, in our schools, in our homes. So it's always been there, and perhaps we'll never be able to completely eradicate it because it's so much part of our lives. But as I said in our meet and greet sessions, we can certainly try to minimize it, try to understand it. And two things are important: how to control and manage it. Then definitely things will be much, much better. The environment in schools will be much better. That I can assure anyone.
Right, ma'am. So, you've done a lot of research on bullying. So, is there any particular incident that you remember that has touched your heart or you remember it? So, if you could speak about that.
Well, in my book, I have put some case studies, um, including my own. And of course, some names have been changed, and I have written its recollections of an adult of when he or she was bullied as a child, and so on. But they're very, very touching instances, which, if you go through my book, you will see that it can really deeply hurt the victim, the perpetrator. The one of the characteristics of this phenomena is that there is some sort of pleasure derived from giving trouble to others or hurting another person. So a victim may be feeling very, very scared. Now, what will happen tomorrow? That used to happen to me also. Like when I was bullied by another classmate, I used to think, now what is she going to do to me tomorrow? There are so many forms of bullying, like there could be physical forms, like being pushed or shoved, or receiving anonymous, very mean kind of notes or letters, things like that. So, or having rumors spread about you. There are so many things that are very, very sad. And the fact is that nobody knows about it because the victim is too scared to share.
Absolutely, ma'am. That's so truthful. And now, one question that really is a trouble to all of us in the world is that many countries today face mental illness as a grave issue, and there are no quick solutions that can change the trend. And is it possibly because young children who were left unprotected are today insecure adults?
Certainly, the mental illness in our society, one of the causes could be a lot of harassment, trouble, torture during the most vulnerable time in your life, that is when you are a school child. It doesn't mean that all mental illness has come from being bullied in school. I'm not saying that, but definitely one of the reasons where an adult also, or teenagers, adolescents suffer from some sort of mental problem. It could be, the root could be something that happened in their teenage years or even younger, isn't it? Now, there are so many consequences of being harassed on a regular basis during your most vulnerable time. There is complete loss of self identity, self esteem. You could feel always fear. There could be deep sorrow and hurt. You lose interest in your studies. You want to be absent, you make up excuses, then one thing leads to another. You start lying, you start stealing from your parents' wallets because the bully demands money or food or something like that. So things like that happen, and there's lack of sleep, there's poorer physical health, and some children even regress, meaning a child of 13 suddenly behaves like a child who's 8 or 9 because there's regression because of mental torture. There is depression, juvenile depression. There are so many cases recorded of juvenile depression. And the worst case scenario is even bullycide, which means death caused by repeated bullying. A child could take his or own life, which is so, so unfortunate and tragic. But this has been recorded, this has happened. That is why all the more reason why we need to talk about it, discuss it, and do things to minimize this problem.
So, ma'am, what do you believe is the best way to break this vicious cycle and just to put a stop to this?
Well, as I said, we may not be able to completely 100% stop it, but two things which I keep repeating is what are the ways that we can control this phenomena? What are the ways we can manage it? The first thing is, of course, there has to be multi level intervention at all levels, right from the national level, at the school level, at the teacher level, at the parent level, and also the peer group can be of tremendous help in mitigating this problem. But the first thing is we should accept it. We should be aware of it, and we should accept that, yes, this is a possibility in my school. It could be happening. While doing my research, how many schools I went to, how many principals I met, how many teachers, how many students, most of them, not all, most of them, they are in a form of denial. No, it can't happen in my school. No, 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 no. If it happened in my school, I would know about it. How would you know about it? No, because the children would tell us. That is where we are absolutely wrong. Children do not tell, neither the victim and, of course, not the bully, isn't it? So the first thing is to accept it and learn about it, and then find ways of dealing with the problem. There are so many things that at the national level can be done. At the school level, the schools can have policies in place, the government can come in. For example, Japan is a real leader in this. They have realized that our future leaders, our future administrators should not be traumatized and troubled during their school years. So they have taken this issue right up to the national level. What about our countries? Are our countries doing anything about it? I have tried many times to change things and have succeeded to a small extent, but not enough. So, what can teachers do on a daily basis? What can parents do? We all need to be absolutely vigilant and notice signs and think about the consequences, talk about this, have regular meetings, give assertiveness training to the victims, understand where the bullies are coming from because they are also children. There are so many things that we can do to try and control this problem. But first of all, we have to accept it.
Right, ma'am. Absolutely. Well, that was a very fruitful discussion, ma'am. And now I will invite Rishona to ask a few questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Anvesha. It has been a pleasure listening to you today, ma'am. I would like to ask you a few questions about your life and your journey. The first question, which is the one that has kept me on my toes, is why bullying? Why did you decide your research be particularly on bullying and what made you choose that path?
Well, thank you for that question, Rishona. Um, the topic of school bullying just didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, I hadn't really planned it. After I did my MPhil and then went on to do my uh, doctoral work, I actually didn't know what subject I should be doing, but my broad subject was educational leadership. Now I had to find a subject dealing with education, but which had some sort of social significance. So in the beginning, I didn't have a clue. I was confused. I was thinking of all sorts of topics. And then one day I visited the British Council library here in Kathmandu, and I was looking here and there. I was browsing around, and suddenly uh, I saw Dr. Ken Rigby's book. The title is Bullying in Schools and What Can You Do About It. So I don't know, somehow I just got very, very attracted and interested in this book. And I borrowed it from the British Council Library, took it home and read it from the first page to the last page. As I closed the book, I realized that this is what I would like to do my research in. And as a school child, I was bullied, but I didn't even understand anything about it. My son was bullied in a school in India. Even then, I mean, I was just angry and wanted to take care of the problem in my own way. But I only after doing research, I understood that this is a very, very serious problem. Just expelling a child from school or taking care of one problem is not enough. We have to really go about it in a much bigger way. So that is how I selected the topic of school bullying. And as I started doing my research, I got more and more immersed in it and got more and more interested. I read so many papers and publications and books by other researchers, like Dr. Ken Rigby, who was a pioneer in school bullying research in Australia. And he's the one who started so much of interest in on this topic. And while I was doing my research, the dean of my university, my professors were a bit afraid because they thought I wouldn't get enough material because no research of this kind had taken place in Nepal. So I said, all the more reason why I should begin. I mean, somebody has to start. And that is how I began and ended my research on school bullying.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing that. It is so great that we have people like you who are striving to resolve these issues continuously. And I truly hope that one day we'll reach a proper solution where there'll be a proper end to bullying. So during our meet and greet sessions, you mentioned how you went to so many schools and talked to them about these issues and how they dealt with them. So how was your experience when you were doing that, and what kind of responses did you get, and what was your take on them?
Yes. A good question, Rishona. I have already addressed this issue a little bit during my conversation with Anvesha. When I went to so many schools, the first reaction was kind of denial that, yes, it's a very important topic, but actually it doesn't apply in the school. And I would say, why? And they would say, because it doesn't exist. So that itself is the starting point. If you say that, no, it cannot be, it is not in our school, then there is cause for concern. Now, why would somebody say that? Because they don't even know about it. They haven't researched, they haven't found out, they haven't taken the trouble to ask troubled children, nothing. So nobody talks about it. I spoke about conspiracy of silence. Everybody is ignoring it or is not aware of it, or even if slightly aware, you are trying to look the other way. So this is the first mistake that we make. And so many teachers told me that we have so much work to do. How can we be vigilant and see if a child is being troubled emotionally? We have so many papers to correct. We have Parents' Day, we have Sports Day, we have results, we have this, final exams, term exams. I mean, there is just so much work that we don't have time to devote to this issue. But I keep saying that this is one issue that if you ignore it, it will only harm children in many, many ways. Like I've already spoken to you all about the consequences of being bullied on a regular, repetitive basis when you are a vulnerable child. So parents need to address it, parents need to accept it, teachers, the school heads, the stakeholders, the government, the education ministry, everybody. So the basic reaction is it's not such a big problem in our schools, or it doesn't exist. Why? Because schools are afraid that, now suppose you advertise the fact that there's bullying in my school. Now who's going to come to my school? Maybe. So there's always that fear. But if you say school bullying exists in every school in any part of the world, but we have systems in place to control and manage this problem, it will give more confidence to parents, to teachers, to everyone, even the children. I spoke about a school in England having a little corner called the Friendship Stop. This was just one way of, if a child is feeling really bad, very hurt, and stands in this corner, somebody or the other will come and take care of you. So if I have that confidence, then I will be happier in school. Now, schools, Anvesha, Rishona, as you know, you are school children. Schools are meant to be places where a child feels loved, protected, secure, happy to learn, happy to grow. And if on a regular basis a child is being harassed and threatened and tortured and pushed and shoved, books stolen, then how can that school be a place where you can learn and grow and be happy? How? It's just not possible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a great pleasure to have you here. Bullying is indeed a problem faced by many, yet understood by some. We think that the bully is at fault, but we need to know that the bully is not a monster, but another child who is under pressure. And with that, we come to the end of our podcast. Comment below and let us know if you liked our podcast. If you want to be a part of similar podcasts, join us. We hope to meet you soon again.
We are here at my good school. Things here are so cool. Together we learn, together we create, together good values, we learn many skills, we soar above the hills. Let's shout it out, hey, let's all be proud, hey, hats off to my good school. Just what we need, hey, for us to succeed, hey, are all here in my good school.